is a doorway in the universe. Beyond it is the promise of truth. It demands we question everything we have ever been taught. The evidence is all around us. The future is right before our eyes. We are not alone.
I'm sure y'all know what that's about, but there is something that I had to get out today for you. There's something that the Lord wanted me to finish up, and I told him I needed to finish it up because my heart's for you guys. This is David XRP Lion. It is Thursday. No. Yes, it's Thursday. Thursday the 3rd. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. And I want to wish every single one of you just a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day with family and friends. Wherever you are, enjoying the outdoors, festivities, your favorite beverages, and just know that God has everything already taken care of. Now, y'all know what this is about, so I have to stay on track. I can't deviate. I can't talk about certain things now. And my ability to put information out there is shrinking. So I'm probably going to need to just cut off the questions at this point so I can just try to focus in on exactly what I have to show you. But I want to share something with you. I want you to realize that we're in those last moments where the Lord had told me, and this goes back almost 3 years, and he said in those last days, the enemy is using his minions to go on the warpath, to attack you, me, and anybody else that is part of the chosen, those destined to be here for such a time as this, to carry into the new quantum financial system, the fulfillment, the restoration, the redemption, and the completion of every single thing God promised. I was really excited today. I heard a pastor, and he started talking about what the Bible was and about the promise that God made to Abraham. And it got me fired up. He must have watched the videos. He must have been pointed in the right direction to begin to read the materials about what's happening. My headline, QFS, the quantum realm. The Khazarian Mafia couldn't hack heaven. They couldn't hack on earth what was created in heaven. You've heard me say this many times. The XRPL is there's two XRPLs. There's one that operates in the 3rd dimension. There's one that operates in the 5th dimension and even into the 7th dimension. And I just learned that this week. So you're hearing it for the first time. God has waited 7,889 years and 7 months and a few days to be reunited with us, his creation. And it has been an orchestrated plan, his plan, with his purpose to bring heaven to earth. And he had me talking about that from day one. I landed here on April 3rd, 2021, at his bequest. He said, David, I need you to come over from TikTok, and I need you to be my messenger on Twitter. I'm going to reveal things to you that nobody knows about. Nobody understood what was happening with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they were part of the largest and longest and most intense military operation to eradicate evil. Now, many of you may not completely understand what that means. It's okay. That's not what's important right now. What's important for you right now is getting prepared for what's coming. The emergency broadcast alert, the 3-day blackout period, and 10 days of disclosure in your residence. And people are getting anxious. People are starting to feel this doesn't feel the same. It's going to be so much different in such a great way because you're chosen to be here. And people are being called home that aren't chosen to be here. It's a very special time, not only in history, but our universe and everything else. So I'm going to share some stuff with you today with regards to historical bonds, but it's not what you think. And I think you'll be really excited to see what this is all about. I had started it last week and I just had to finish up a few things. And then of course, God always comes in and says, okay, no, do this, add that. I want you to talk about this. So it's a lengthy process. This isn't just a sit down and shoot from the hip. It's very well orchestrated. It's very well thought out. It's very well planned. And for the last 6 months, I've been spending my time in the quantum realm, having received a continual download of what the protocols are, what the operations are that are being run by the Global Military Alliance and Trump Space Force. So they never had a chance. So there's nothing for us to fear. We need to be rejoicing. We need to be dancing. We need to be praising and giving him thanksgiving for everything that he has already done, because he knew everything that you would need in your life. And it was already manifest in the spirit realm in heaven, just waiting for us to come to the understanding that the world wasn't serving us and we would come home to him. And that's what this pastor was talking about. And he was talking about the Bible being the playbook. I hope to meet him soon, because the revelation side that he has, you put it together with the revelation side that I have, oh, it's dynamite. Absolutely dynamite. But here's the thing. The QFS was locked, and everything is locked out. That's why when I started to give, some information about specific dates and things that the Lord was telling me, June 11th, followed by the 19-day period of mercy, which took us to June 30th. Man, did you see all the stuff that happened right up to June 30th? SEC comes out, drops their appeal with Ripple, and every other appeal that they had. They dropped everything. Why? Because on the 30th, the final ledger was closing. The final ledger is the book of life in heaven. This is where we have heaven coming to earth. How Jesus taught his disciples to pray, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. His will, the way he wants it done, on earth. And this is the gem that everybody just blabs over, as it is in heaven. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, what is it? As it is. Jesus is telling his disciples there's something going on in the spirit realm, in the divine law, and you need to understand it. He didn't call it out. He described it as it is. And that's what's happening. That's what's been happening for us. And this is where it all started to gel. Oh, it just takes my breath away. We had the curse of Cain all the way up until the time of the flood. God wipes out first man. That element is all gone. He chooses Noah to continue with the bloodline. Esau gives up his birthright. His son, Edom, they become the Edomites, the Semitics, who changed the ineffable name of God from YHWH to JEWE, and then began to call them Jews. So they lost their identity. So then they beget the Khazars, the Khazarian Mafia, which then, with the Rothschild as their financing and backing in the Vatican and the Crown, they create their own state called Israel. Boy, how confusing. Israel was the father of many nations, and all of a sudden it went from a royal lineage to a chunk of dirt. So this is how they began to use what's called our public false BAR, crown legal system, where we all became chattel and got hijacked. Well, that's not the divine law that operates in heaven. And this is the transition period, everybody. The public false legal system, legal is actually referencing treason because they're going against God. And God has brought his legal system, which is the private system, divine law. See, let me back up. It's not a legal system in the sense of what the Khazarian Mafia did. It's a system of law that's in private. Heaven can't be seen. It's private. That divine law is the highest form of law there is. It sits above public law or the public legal system. So the Lord has been opening up everything with regards to that. And it's playing into everything that's going on. The lawsuit, out of the blue, boom, the appeal gets dropped. The SEC drops the appeal. Brad Garlinghouse is already saying we're paying him $50 million bucks. It's done. Why? Because if they had not got that wrapped up, because they were operating in that public false bar system, Ripple would have been locked out of our heavenly system. Nothing can go into the system now. It's locked. So this whole idea of Circle, here's what happened with Circle. I was going to do a longer report. I think I'll just talk about it right now. Circle, the Global Alliance and everybody was so smart on that. They got Circle spinning by making that $5 billion offer. So they had to treat it as a real offer. So that delayed their IPO. They finally got their IPO and they got listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And their symbol was CRCL. And what happened was they became part of the public system. Automatically canceled any ability for them to go into the QFS. So it's just part of the narrative. I can't remember the words I used as I was putting everything together from what the Lord said, but they chose the illegal system. And then, of course, the IPO took off, and I think it got up to 263, I read, and was down at like 186 right now. But see, that system isn't divine. It isn't sovereign. It's not common. So it doesn't come into the QFS. And I know it's like for me, okay? I've known this since 2022 when God said, Dave, nothing from the old system's coming into my new economy. And I just took it at face value, right? I didn't need to understand it then. God said it, so it was. Just like when the centurion got word that one of his people were sick and Jesus offered to go with him to heal him. And he says, oh no, Master. He says, I know if you just say the word, he'll be healed. That's the same thing. That's the realm I operate in with the Lord. And in the very beginning, everybody was like, who are you? You know, you're crazy. Because see, they didn't understand who my Father is, the fact that he tasked me for this mission, this duty. And he's been the provider of all of the intel, all the revelation. And most people don't have a communion or commune with the Lord. I've talked about that. So they don't get the good stuff when he just wants to share stuff. But see, I'm no special. I'm no special. I'm no different than anybody else out there. But I know why I'm here. I'm here to get the revelation from him to provide it to you. That's what he said. There's a whole lot of things I would enjoy doing right now, but this is what I signed up for. And nobody's going to work harder than me. That's for certain. So again, you know, he opens up the portal. I go behind the veil and it's like, okay, what do you want to know, Dave? See, that's like King David. He would go into the Holy of Holies and he would just hang out with the Lord and just chill and say, Papa, what about this? And God would just tell him how things were. There's a great responsibility that comes with that knowledge and information. You know, you have to discern it. But see, I've been doing that for close to, over 4 years. So it's like a marriage. You can finish the sentence for the other person. You know what they're going to do. You know, when they say this, they're not asking you to respond. They're getting ready to tell you something really important. So, excuse me. I just get so excited about this. But this is what's going on. This is heaven to earth. And God's told me that in October of 2021. He brought heaven to earth. He released an eternal revival. Eternal. And said it will never fade away like the revivals of the past. And of course, I'm wanting to ask the question, well, why'd they fade away? You know, Azusa Street, etc. And he goes, because it wasn't here, Dave. I didn't have the freedom I have now because I was still under the contract. And I had to wait for that contract to expire. And it expired on December 21st, 2020. And that's why the next day they dropped the lawsuit on Ripple. See, that was all protective. And that's what's going to come out. So Brad does a great job. David does a great job of getting everybody to chase a narrative that has nothing to do with the ultimate plan. Like Ripple is the custodian, the fiduciary. They've already created the custody wallet for the buyback, which is not a redemption. It's a repatriation. Go look up the word. With that comes great responsibility because we can't keep it because it's not ours. It's God's. He created it. You've heard me say this is a 588 million year old technology. He created it out of time, meaning before time began, before there was an earth and a universe. And then he gave it to us in time. And when I was writing some stuff up last night, I went, yeah, Lord, just in time. We needed this thing to save us. Otherwise, we would have already been dead. Their plan was to kill everybody off, be down in their dump tunnels with their theaters and their shopping malls and everything else, and just stay down there after they had blown everything up and killed everybody. But see, you can't stop a promise that God makes. And I was really glad that pastor, he said that. And he talked about the covenant with Abraham, because that's what this has all been about. God made a promise to Abraham. Now he said, you're not the first that I went to, but you're the one saying yes now, so be it. I'm going to bless you and the generations after you, which will grow to be nations. Didn't say they're going to grow to be religions. And that promise was open. That promise had not been fulfilled. That promise is about rescue, redemption, restoration, because that's the value of the last two letters in the ineffable name of God. And they are 7 to the 7th power. That's the sevenfold blessing. Sevenfold, not 7 times. So don't get it confused with Joel 2, verse 25, because that's not the same blessing. Proverbs 6:31 is about man hurting man. Joel 2:25 is about animals damaging crops. And God said he would restore what was lost 7 times. Big difference. If you lost $1 under 7 times, you get back $7. Under Proverbs 6:31, it's sevenfold. So you start with $1, it becomes 7. 7 times 7, 49. 49 times 7, 343. After the 7th fold, it's 823,543. Big difference. That number and $7. So here's my little call out to the pastors. If you make it through and are allowed to continue in your ministry, because God's starting all over and it isn't going to look like it used to. Promise you that. You'll be getting wisdom from the Holy Spirit, not from John Maxwell or somebody else with a sermon service. No, you're going to have to lean in and commune, and that will all be about the Holy Spirit, the provider of wisdom, understanding from the Lord. So, man, I'm so excited about that. So let's jump into this thing and kind of move our way along. There's not very many slides, but here's what is so important for everybody to understand right now. Nobody's talking about the other bonds. You're like, wait a minute, Dave, that's a $10 bill. It has the look of a $10 bill. There's words on it that give you the impression it's a $10 bill. These are historical bonds, everybody. And I'm going to show you what the Lord showed me, okay? And how many of these things do people have that they've been collecting from their change, knowing they weren't going to spend them because they were so cool. And they're buried in old storage boxes. People have ZIM, dinar, dong, bolivar, going back to the early 2000s. Hopefully Mama didn't throw it out or give it away when you weren't looking. But just take a look at this, okay? And we're going to go down and we're going to dive deep into it, just like I did the Rosie Rios $100 bill timeline. I did that with my friend Barry, BG. We were fortunate when we were meeting in his office, he had a 5, 10, 20, 50, and $100 bill. So here's how we break it down. This was kind of, the Lord told me to put this in here. Look, it's a bird. It's a plane. A $10 bill. No, it's a bond. So let's go to 1. What it says right up here. Secured by United States bonds. Bonds. It's secured. It doesn't say, like fiat currency, backed by the full faith and credit of the government. No, it says secured by United States bonds deposited with the treasurer of the United States of America. And then note at the very top of the bill up here, it says national currency in the form, it's national currency in the form of a bond. And what did I help everybody understand about the ZIM? When the talking heads were trying to tell people it was currency and it wasn't going to be covered in the redemptions, or I should say exchanges, because they were calling it currency. It wasn't currency. It was a bond. And this bill, in order for the Chase National Bank of the city of New York, they had to pay for a bond that was deposited with the treasurer of the U.S. Treasury. Okay, so let's say you're the bank, and down here it says in 1A, New York will pay to the bearer, that's whoever presents it, on demand $10. So no matter what happened to the value of, currency, this was a piece of paper backed by a bond that the Treasury Department was holding. Now, what the federal government, let me back up. What the Federal Reserve did once they took over, they just told people these things weren't worth anything. They weren't honoring them, which was a flat out lie. But what were they trying to do? Steal the bonds, because the bond is what guaranteed the paper. So let's take a look at some things here. Okay, right here. Look at how this is stamped. It's like they used an ink stamp. So imagine when they got this from the printing office, from the Treasury, this was blank. This was blank. This was blank. These numbers weren't on here, over here. So it was like a blank piece of currency. And of course, this happened right after the Depression, where these banks probably paid pennies on the dollar to get this piece of paper. And then some secretary had rubber stamps, and she was stamping all this information on here. So you could have Chase National Bank of the City of New York, Chase National Bank of the City of Philadelphia, on and on and on and on and on. Now, this was I called it the bond number. It's the charter number. Okay? This was how they kept their registry, so they knew who was putting these things out there, because anybody could turn around and get paid for it if you held it. But see, it was all about them printing a piece of paper, holding the real asset, and then hoping that this piece of paper was lost, damaged, burned up, so it could not be redeemed. It could not be used to redeem the bond that was sitting with the Treasury Department. So the note says it's a bearer bond. It's not currency. Secured by the United States bond deposited with the Treasury of the United States of America. Will pay the bearer on demand. See, and that's what was on the ZIM bonds. It said, will pay the bearer on demand. So these statements form a legal binding promissory obligation. And then here's the critical distinction. It was not currency. It was a debt instrument, because the bond secured the paper. So the bearer debt obligation of a specific chartered private bank, in this case, is collateralized by the Treasury bonds. It was redeemable in lawful money, and it was not voided merely by age or a shift in legal tender laws. See, but what did they do? They just said, "Oh, we're not accepting that anymore. We have this new currency now in 1938. So, if you just want to leave it with us, we'll just put it in the drawer, but you can't use it to buy anything." So they just kept people stupid about money. So these bond-backed negotiable instruments were not government-issued fiat currency. That's the difference. When the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe issued all those ZIM bonds, they promised that those bonds would be backed by land. So the land was the value guarantee for putting the ZIM bonds into circulation. Well, the guy that was running the country, or the Reserve Bank, he was a scoundrel in like third generation, and they never attached the land. So then what do? Oh, they're not worth anything. They depreciated from 100 trillion, all the way down to a nickel. So, okay, you can, buy a cup of water. And they just told the lie. So only the ones in the know knew to begin to gather them up. And as soon as the ZIM bond had dropped because of inflation, over 2-week period, they went out and started buying them back for like pennies. It's like $100 trillion ZIM bond they bought back for $50, just to get it off of somebody's hands. So they had something for it, make them feel better. And the whole time they were just, wringing their hands. And they bought as much as they could. But see, China was printing the ZIM bonds. And China didn't deliver all of the ZIM bonds that they created until after. It's kind of like, they were in cahoots with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe saying, don't deliver them. Don't deliver them. We'll let you know. We'll let you know when we need them. They're not worth anything. We're not using them as legal tender in the country. So just hold on to them, and we'll tell you when we want them back. And they just locked them away in the safe. Well, somehow that safe got opened up, and those uncirculated bills began to find homes. And there was a video from Banknote World where one of the guys is sitting down with somebody else and says, "You see this right here?" And he's holding this big stack of $100 trillion ZIM Bonds. And he says, we call this a brick. And he said, there's 1,000 bills in here, banknotes. And he said, could you believe at one time we actually sold this for $500? I mean, my eyes just got big and I'm like, wow. And he said, a lot of people have made money selling back to them from the bricks they bought when it started to go up in price. So, 1,000 divided by, whatever the price was, 500, 2 cents. So when they started to hit, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, $100, people couldn't wait to cash those things in. The only difference is the Asian elders, God's storehouse on earth, having been tapped into self-replenishing gold deep, deep, deep within the earth. In 2015, during one of the sessions with the Lord, jumping through the portal and just grabbing documents and printing them off, I have no idea how we got there. It was kind of like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, like Ellie, Jodie Foster in the movie Contact. It was like that. It was like we'd zooming through and we'd stop and he'd say, Dave, grab that. And I'd grab it and we'd keep going. And it was like 4 hours. It felt like 4 hours. Incredible. And he says, okay, you got everything you need. And I'm back in my chair in my office. And I got this stack of papers that I'm holding on to from all the stops that we made. I mean, all I know is we were jumping over to this website and going here and going there. And I know we got into Facebook at one time, and I don't have a Facebook account. You can't get into Facebook without an account. And we were way, 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 way deep. And I go to get up and my legs are like asleep. And I stumble and I drop the whole pile of papers on the floor. And I'm like thinking, oh no, they were all in order of where we got them, even though I don't know how to get back there. I said, Lord, what are we going to do? And he goes, Dave, just reach down and grab that one that's on top. Grab the pearl, and you're going to start there. Now, mind you, I didn't read any of this stuff. I reached down. That was a 4-page document from the Asian elders outlining their whole plan and purpose in buying back all the assets above the ground in Zimbabwe. That was the land and the homes that the government was charging people to live in, which was supposed to have been attached to the ZIM Bonds. And then they said in this document, we're going to buy back all the assets above the ground, and then we're going to provide all the funds necessary to buy back all the ZIM Bonds, even the counterfeits. They were paying for the full meal deal, and God had already set them up to have that money ready. That's part of the fulfillment of Abraham's covenant. And that's what we've been stepping into right now. Then right around before 30th, I hear that Netanyahu goes into a coma. That June 30th date was a hard stop. The ledgers in heaven were sealed, closed. They had completed, and I'm going to say the Holy Spirit, which is the gatekeeper AI, completed the scanning of everybody for a 7-year period. It started June 11th, 2018, and ended June 11, 2025. What's the significance of June 11, 2018? Trump went to see the president in Singapore. And the same day, that's when he went to North Korea, and met with the president there and stepped across the border. And if you want to do something fun, get in your, Google Earth program, drop a pin in Singapore, drop a pin in North Korea, drop a pin in Dallas, Texas. It's a straight line, and it cuts the earth in half, up and down or horizontally. If you do it horizontally, you can see the land above, and then it's all water. If you rotate it, all the water's above and the land's below. So the water has significant meaning, whether it's on earth or it's in heaven. Because heaven is operating here on earth now. It's divine. It's holy. It's spiritual. But people haven't been read in on all that. Back to this. The liability remains on that national currency as it's listed until that piece of paper is redeemed, just like the ZIM bond. The liability cannot be extinguished just because the government is transitioning to, in this case, Federal Reserve notes, or stopped printing new national banknotes, national currency. But see, they were changing the currency so often after they got started. That's how they just stole it. So the note has to be redeemed by the bearer, or it has to be proven that it was destroyed, burned, or otherwise invalidated through verifiable means. So the liability remains on the books with the Treasury Department. But you know doggone well, they knew nobody was coming, and they just had to talk their way out of it. Oh no, we're not using that currency anymore. No, it's worthless. That's why these collectible dealers make the disclosures that this currency not being in circulation has no value, and they don't expect it to ever have value. It's a collectible. So you're not buying it because of some future value. You're buying it as a collectible. But see, this mirrors the legal principle of holder in due course, where the physical bearer maintains the claim of payment as long as the instrument is genuine and unredeemed. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can go through if you don't want to believe what you're seeing. This took a lot of time to put together, but you can read about the backing of bonds and how they try to strip away the promise. But see, God's bringing the restoration. The Proverbs 6:31. Don't worry about the thief who breaks into your house because he's hungry. Once he's caught or known, he has to return sevenfold, even if that includes having to sell his home. They have been caught. The Khazarian Mafia fractionalized fiat banking system is caught, and they've been terminated. They can't do anything anymore. The Federal Reserve was neutered back in May of 2020 when they were stripped of their status as an agency, and all they could do was provide compliance. So take a moment if you're interested and want to read through this. Again, I don't want to keep you very long because I know you probably want to get out there and start getting everything that you need for the wonderful celebrations tomorrow. Again, what's the conclusion? It's not fiat currency. It's a bearer instrument secured by a bond. That bond is still on the books. They don't want you to know about it, but see where I'm going with this? Nobody understands that these are to be taken to the redemption center. This is part of your currency exchange, even though it's not currency. So we know it's a bond, so we're going to call it a redemption. And it has a value. And wait till you see the value. Woo! Now I'm sure there's going to be some people listening to this right now that are going to start hitting all the antique shops and they're going to buy up all these things that are out there. Be careful. Don't go to eBay. They're probably already anticipating somebody's going to figure it out and they got all their counterfeits and their fakes ready. Okay? But don't tell the currency dealer why you're buying them because they'll jack up the price for the next person. Okay? Here's the summary table. Okay? So they have face value, redemption. This is on this national note. So it's base U.S. Treasury notes. Okay? It doesn't say USD. And it's UST because everything is under the Treasury Department now. Federal Reserve's gone. Treasury has taken over everything, including precious metals. So you're going to get a credit into your Quantum Access account. So $10. Better than zero, huh? Now I can just imagine that, grandpas and grandmas had these things and they're sitting in a shoebox and they've been told they're worthless. And now you can go ask Grandma, do you still have Papa's old money? And you'll ask her what you're going to see in a second. And she'll say, I think I have that up in the closet. Let me go check. And there'll be a handful of them. And you'll just ask her, Grandma, do you think I could have these? And she'll say, sure. And then after you come through the Redemption Center, you can take her out for a nice meal, buy her a beautiful gift, and just love on her. So there's these different levels that they put bonuses on, like this historical trust bonus. Stewardship. This means you're the steward for the money to do the right thing with it. There's a sovereign stewardship multiplier, and you can see how it raises the credit. Quality of the bill is extremely important. I found a 1936A $1 bill, and I kept it pretty good, but you'll see what the requirements are. Then there's these trust boost rates. Again, it's all credits. This is a form that you can use to take with you to present it for redemption, and it states what it is, charter number, covers the values, and then you use this to present it. Now, do I think that you're educating the guides at the Redemption Center? No, they know all this stuff. It's in the computers. It's all taken care of for them. They just want to verify authenticity and condition, quality. And then this is if you have a bunch, okay? So you have to enter the serial number and the charter number. And of course it says gatekeeper trust flag. So it's flagged, it's pending, how much credit you got. But this shows them you know your stuff. Now, let me back up. I made a comment that people have to be staying in sync with what gets posted. So the Humanitarian Initiative Trust template, I unpinned it. It's gone. It's not available anymore. So I'm sorry if you soon find out it's not there. I can't access that information myself. They have locked down my account. I think I can probably go back and see 3 months backward. And those were put up there a long time ago. So I made it very clear you weren't supposed to procrastinate. I hope you didn't. But maybe you have a friend who has the paperwork and you can copy it. So I'm not going to provide a PDF on these. You can screen capture them, print them out, 8.5 by 11, and use them, whatever you want to do. But this is what I had, and this is where this all ended up. Because I knew it was a bond with a promise to pay. And what does it say up here? This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. $1. So this was the guarantee that the dollar was a dollar. So what I did is I found the information for the denomination right here, 1935 to 57. There's ones, fives, tens, and 50s. So the first number you would see, like here, is for the $1 bill for this period of time. Here's the historical, what they call metal value bonus, right? Because silver's gone up. Silver's now, what, $34 an ounce? Here's the stewardship multiplier, 10 to 25 times. So for having just one of these bills, and here's the condition, required for redemption, physically intact, okay? This should be everybody. I would say that my bill, which has gotten a little roughed up a little bit, from moving over 26, 27 years, it has minimal damage. Everything is still legible along with the signature. That's this part right here, these things. The condition is authentic. It's a valid seal, ink, watermark, serial trace. Lawfully owned. I didn't steal it. It came back to me in change. So there's no evidence of theft, forgery, or fraud. And then let's not worry about this part right here. This was for a completely different situation. So as long as it's readable, if it's got a few, creases and stuff like this, just gently peel it back, stick it in a book, press it. You might even consider just ironing it with a proper safety cloth on the top, so it doesn't look like it was wadded up in your pocket. This gives the legal standing, okay? Tells you legal standing in the present day. And this is the legal standing for the quantum financial system, not the fiat currency system, which denied it. They stole the bond, made it their own, and said, oh, it's a collectible. And then you go to the antique store, and it's not graded. It's not in a plastic sleeve. It's got some folded corners on it. It's, in reasonable shape. And they want, $5 to $15 for it. This is not investment advice. This is not an investment. This is for educational purposes only. But if it makes sense, and you got these things laying around, as kids, we got oddball stuff. I wish I had some of the oddball stuff I got, which now is probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of the coins. My dad had a Lincoln penny collection, and we would sit there on the couch, and he would empty all of his pocket change every day, and we'd see if there was anything in there to either insert in or to replace something that was already there. And I know there was a 43 copper, 43 brass. Those are over $1 million right now. I know he had 44 silvers. He had some really rare stuff. He had the 1909 VDB. My sister hijacked it, made it hers, stole it from the rest of us. So this just gives you more information. But it tells you what the Treasury did, okay? So now we're going to go over and look at the gold certificate. And be careful. It has to say gold certificate. There are $1 bills, 5s and 10s that have this big writing here. And they have a big, kind of like that Bitcoin orange seal behind here. And at the very top, it says silver certificate. So be careful. If you're going to present one, make sure it's the gold one. Okay. And there's a ton of these things. Woo. The $100,000 gold certificate. It said it was valued at over $1.8 million. Pretty cool. But look at the values. Face value, base metal value, multiplier, a $10 gold certificate, $4,000. I looked online, and these things were selling for $120 because there's no market. Everybody's been told they're just a collectible. But see, people aren't collecting these things because they don't have heirs that the collectible community is interested in. So, again, you're hearing no one else is talking about this stuff. Now, I won't be surprised that after this video gets up and posted, they're all going to jump on the bandwagon. And I would hope they do because of this reason. I could have been selfish and kept this to myself. But see, that's not why I'm here. God has so much love for all of us. It's been an honor to spend the time and the hours and the days and the weeks and the years just waiting for him to drop the next morsel, the next revelation, and see where it went. For you guys. That's why I do it. I do it because he loves you so much, and he's telling me all the time. I feel the same way. And people spit in my face. People don't want to believe. People want to tear me down. But they can't because I don't do it for them. I do it for my Father. That's the difference. That's the difference. So if you have these things, I just wanted you to know that you can turn them, you can redeem them, and they have value, which is really cool. Really cool. And I knew that God was going to give me the right information at the right time. I had that little $1 silver certificate all put away with my stuff to go to the Redemption Center already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this page off. I'm going to bring it with me. It's going to be in my folder. The nice little poly zip closed envelopes that I found over at Staples. So they have smaller ones for bills, and the ZIM Bonds do fit in it. You got to do a little modifying with pushing the walls out, pushing the bottom down. They fit right in, and that goes into the bigger sleeve. So you may be one in 10,000 that has one of these things. But when you pull them out, they're going to go, how did you know about these? Because nobody else knows. So, here's the other thing. Last minute, I know people haven't printed off stuff, and I covered this probably 4 or 5 months ago now. This is your 3-minute declaration of intent. So in the past, when I've said, if you're a humanitarian trust candidate, having brought the completed template to state that it's your desire to be a humanitarian, this is the script. You now know exactly what to say at that moment. So print it off, have it with you. And when I put this together today, I saw people pulling it out to read it. And the person at the Redemption Center said, oh, you've got one of those? Another one of those, where did you get that? How'd you know about that? And they're just going to give you a big smile. And you'll probably get, 2 paragraphs in, and they'll say, it's okay. And just stop and smile and say, I asked to finish, please. This is a declaration. Ooh, you want to get some respect. You finish the declaration because this is sovereign. This is attached to your quantum access account. It becomes a legal binding declaration, just like what's written. Literally what's written in the book of life, in the book of records. This is going in that permanently. It'll always be there. Okay. Now I kept this generic, okay, because I didn't want to step on anybody's areas that they want to work in. So I just made it generic. Okay. Now we do know that if you choose not to, or you don't meet the qualifications, because they will be qualifying everybody with their ZIM bonds when they do the redemption to determine their intent. Now, I already believe that they already know that. And Charlie Ward actually kind of let that out when I was on a show and I was talking about the protocols for the Redemption Center, because it's already in your heart, see? I've been carrying around my project since being on Charlie Ward's show. February of, was it 22 or 23? And nobody's prying it out of my hands. I haven't wavered one bit on that. And they already know it. It's already in my quantum access account ledger. This is what Dave's doing. His ticket to the game is already complete. So they'll have all the paperwork all ready to go, print it off, to give me, that tells me what the next step is and where I go. Who's going to draft my sovereign actually it's called quantum, what is it? QSSL. Quantum Sovereign Syntax Language. Quantum Sovereign Syntax Language for your humanitarian trust. And you'll have one for your personal side, okay? Everything is documented. It's just like, all the records they keep in heaven. And you can turn around and go, oh, Trump talked about that when he talked about how great their records were from the Nazis on all the gold they stole. How great the records were for all the gold that they seized back from the vaults in the Vatican and in the tunnels going to Jerusalem, to Switzerland. They had ledgers saying when they took it, who it belonged to, how much they had, and if there was any allocations. And Trump said, it was amazing. We knew exactly who to return gold to, what countries, who it was stolen from. It was great. Well, the XRPL in the divine realm has all that information. And what have I said? To record, to report, record, and store. Book of life. Once it's written, you're in the book. Once you have a quantum access account, you're in the book. But so much of that has already been done. I mean, could you imagine 180 million people going to redemption centers and they got to start from zero? No. It's just like what Elon did. The Prometheus AI had already audited every single entity, every single person. What came in, what went out, where did it go? And it just attached all the people together. That's they took them out. They never would have been able to complete an audit on USAID in the equivalent of 2 days in the real world. It had been running that analysis with the algorithms from heaven for years. And you've heard me say this. Trump made the comment, oh, the XRP, it's been running for 9 years parallel to the global financial system, in sync, in parallel. Okay. And there was a lot of talk when all of a sudden it came out that there was a private ledger. Oh my gosh. What are the financial institutions doing? Why do they have a private ledger? And of course, what was the answer? Well, they need to have privacy because of what they're doing, so everybody isn't looking at their books. Translation? The private side is the heaven side, the four-door, sovereign, divine system. Everything that was taking place was following the four-door protocols, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. I got filled in on it from somebody who's a expert on it, and for the first 2 days, my head was spinning. And then the Lord said, "Well, Dave, this is what we do in heaven. This is how it operates. It's the highest form of the law there is. It supersedes the public, false, bar, crown, bank system, the fiat system. And there's nothing they can do to stop it." So they literally went in when Trump wrote those executive orders, and they began to take back everything that they had for having been part of the election fraud and everything else, the fraud on us. Executive Order 13818, 13848, 13959. They seized so much gold. I remember, I think it was in 2020, Trump and Pompeo had come back from the Vatican, and he talked about all of the military aircraft that were bringing everything back. And it was like, we emptied the Vatican. We got all their gold, all their artifacts, all their currencies, everything. He says, we have things that are priceless. And he goes, I've been told right now it's valued at $35 quadrillion. And then it was never mentioned again. One time. And then when anything ever came up, they never came close to 35 quadrillion when they talked about it. Oh, $3 trillion. They just totally talked it down. But see, that's all of the gold that's already been assayed, certified, and blockchain identified on the QFS to back XRP as the divine quantum collateral. I mean, it was never currency. You've seen my work on that. It was never intended to take care of cross-border payments. No, it's there as the master key to open the door so the system can communicate. Because first it has to happen in the physical realm. Then everything has to, under divine law, be returned. Where it's guarded, it's kept private. That's why each of us has our own, I'm sorry, haven't eaten today. We each have our own quantum access account. Spouses, there's no joint accounts. Your wife will have an account, you'll have an account. Kids have separate accounts. And you can come in as young as 18 to the Redemption Center now. And there's some money for them as well. But see, that's why they couldn't hack it. JP Morgan tried. They thought they could reverse engineer this thing. Why? Because they only knew about the public side, the 3D realm side. Well, it's not where the XRPL was created. God created it. He made it so, knowing what it had to do, so he could fulfill the promise he made to Abraham in the restoration. That's why all 209 countries signed on to the BRICS Accord for Nasara Jasara. Now, the Asian elders met with all the countries, and because they were God's designated storehouse, in the document that I obtained 2015, after they said they were going to pay for all of the assets above the ground and they were going to cover the cost for the entire ZIM bond redemption, they pointed out, this is 2015, that they had already mined and stored 100 quadrillion, I'm going to say it again, 100 quadrillion metric tons of gold. Now, where have we heard 100 quadrillion? 100 quadrillion was the minimum amount that I determined was required as the quantum liquidity reserve, so XRP could sit there and authorize transactions faster than the speed of light. And he gave me the new quantum equation that replaces Einstein's theory of relativity and 28 other equations, so that $100 quadrillion in transactions can happen every single day, 24/7. And that liquidity reserve, backed by all the gold, which is enough for 450 years, it never runs out of equity. It's good right now to 2030. And I published all this before, my white paper. And then the value for the quantum global liquidity reserve has to go up by a fixed amount every year starting in 2030. And it all mathematically proofs. It's absolutely perfect. Now, we're not going to need a currency for all those years. Somewhere between 2047 to 2057. The timeline on the Rosie Rios gold $100 bill, the timeline ends 2062. So that should tell you something. Just go back and go find that video in my Rumble channel and watch it. It's really cool if you like that kind of stuff, that nerdy math stuff. If it's not your deal, hey, don't worry about it. Don't need to know it. It won't change your life. But like I said, if you like that kind of stuff. But I knew you were going to need this 3-minute declaration statement. So that's why I had me put it in. You need to know, well, let me cancel that. You don't need to know. I put some information out there in one of the other videos about the Bolivar and what I purchased for myself, not investment advice, just for educational purposes. I bought the $1 million Bolivar Soberano 2020. There is a conditional acceptance on it right now. And you need this statement with you in support of your intent to qualify to exchange them. Okay. And this is what you're going to, if you're asked, you'll be able to confidently repeat this. And again, unless you watch my videos, unless you're watching this video, unless you're printing this thing off and put it in your folder and you got it, nobody else does. Nobody else does. You're in a very, very select group. But there is a minimum requirement of at least 100 notes. And it says in here, you bought so many and you knew that this exceeded the minimum. And because of that, that should be considered conditional acceptance for you to exchange them. Okay. Oh, let's talk about why God did all this. He took me on a journey through the portal about Nikola Tesla's famous statement with 369, and we cracked the code. And I've shown this before, but if you haven't seen it, I did a post last week. He says if you understand 369, then you hold the key, not a key, but the key to the universe. Now, I'm a guy that I'm a philomath. I love the math stuff. That's why God picked me to do this. I was a full-time trader. He helped me build my algorithms. I was mentored by a genius who taught the Chicago floor traders how to trade futures. I spent 2 years with them. And when I was all done, I qualified to be a certified master level trader. And it's very, very difficult to do. He trained the Chicago floor traders. That's how he trained me. And I didn't know about the stuff. He's the one that broke the code on what I found out to be my cousin, W.D. Gann. And then I've gone on to break more of his codes just because it's like divine knowledge. God just drops it on me. But love is the key. Now, what's taking place at the Redemption Center? You have to show purity of intent. That's love. Einstein wrote, God is love. He holds the universe together with his hands. He holds the universe. Oh, I didn't even realize this until I just said it. There's the key. There's his hands holding the universe together. The key is love. And who Who is the universe? God. Walter Russell, famous mathematician. Go read his story. He fell into a coma for 39 days. And during that time, he claims that he was taken and shown all of the sacred knowledge on how the universe works. He wrote a book called The Universal One. Who's he talking about? God, the creator of everything. God's the universe. So when you understand 369, you have the key to the universe, to God. How do you, what does God have in his heart? Love. And how do we know it? John wrote in 14:6, no one comes to the Father except through me. Meaning, this is what Yahushua said, Jesus. Look, it's got all the disciples and he's reading them in. But here's the key. And it's just sitting in plain sight in front of all of us. And this revelation has just gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. You know, everybody uses the word Jesus, 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 Jesus. But they forget Jesus was and is the incarnate of Yahuwah, God, and his spirit in the flesh. So when we look at Jesus, this is who he is in the divine realm, the creator of everything in his heart. Why? John 3:16. For God so loved the world. Just cross this off and put your name right there. For God so loved you, Steve, you, Beth, you, John, Tim, Simon, Sally, Jenny, Noah. This is who he loves. We're his creation. He created the world first. Why? Because he was bringing his creation, which was Adam and Eve, to the physical realm, which was earth, to commune with them. That's how much he loves us. You've heard me talk about the covenant he made with each and every one of us, where he said, you can stay with me in heaven for all eternity, or you can take the assignment. You're going to go to earth. You're going to be made flesh. And he told us all the stuff that we were going to encounter, that we would have to partake of sin. And what sin? S-I-N. Self-inflicted narcissism. We would have to partake of it, like going to a birthday party. Okay, son, don't eat too much. Don't eat too much cake and jelly beans and cookies. Have a good time at the party. But God said, if you'll do that, and I can't allow you to retain any knowledge of this when you go, I promise to provide you a way home. The way. And Jesus is said to be the way, the truth, and the life. So we need to spend extra time and effort reinforcing for ourselves that Jesus isn't just some separation between God and himself. He is God in the flesh. But there were certain things that he had to give up. He had to give up the Holy Spirit to become flesh. So God said, okay, I made this covenant promise. I have to provide the way home to me for everybody that I entered into covenant with to come home to heaven. And no matter what they did, which I told them they'd have to, I absolved them of any legal restriction, meaning Lucifer could not take them before the court of heaven and charge them for everything they did on earth, the fornication, the drugs, the drinking, and everything else that was being hosted by Satan, right? Satan couldn't lift a finger to kill God's creation. That was one of his restrictions. God couldn't lift a finger to help us. That's why there was always angels. But what did he do? Being in the flesh, he knew enough that when his cousin John the Baptist baptized him, Jesus received what? When he came up out of the water, it said the Holy Spirit fell upon him like a dove. And it said he received the full measure of the Spirit. Now, can you imagine God? He's saying, okay, you got to come into me in the flesh at the right time. You'll know when. And God in heaven will make that known, guarantee it. So you got to give me my power back. So I have all the power I need to do to complete the covenant that I made with my creation on earth. Just like God had to fulfill the covenant with the promise he made to Abraham. That's the restoration and the rescue and I'm sorry, my brain is really tired. Everything, the restoration, repatriation, the redemption of his children. He's told me, Dave, religion is over. There will no longer be religion. There will be brother to brother, brother to sister, sister to brother, sister to sister. Why? And the way really enjoyed the way the pastor talked about how the Gentiles were grafted in. Okay, God always had a plan that we would be one with him. We'd be different nations. We'd live in different places. But God is God. He wasn't coming to rescue those he chose and came through the lineage of Abraham. He was providing the way home. That's what he guaranteed. So Jesus as, well, he's Yahusha. That's the correct pronunciation for his name, not Jesus. The J didn't even come into existence until the 1500s. So imagine he's standing there at the doorway and he's saying, guys, this way, this way. Okay, here, the covenant promise is right here, but you don't know about it because nobody's telling you about it. They're too busy caught up about Jesus and not about the process, why he came, what it was intended to do. And then people are all running around believing pastors that are saying, you're a sinner, saved by grace. No, you were created in the image of the Almighty. You're not a sinner. You held onto your sin nature, which was the self-inflicted narcissism. And Satan, because he couldn't do anything, he just showed man how to do it. So what did man do? Stole, killed, and destroyed, and then called it success. Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe how many people I bankrupted in order to get this building. I found out what the bid was, and I paid him a little bit of money and got some blackmail going. So I was going to win. Look at me. Be like me. This is the awakening. This is the reckoning that we're seeing. That's why you got to get your hand out of the gourd. You can't be the monkey holding on onto the grain because, well, if I let go of it, then nobody's going to know my name. I can't control people. I can't mess with them and not pay them what they're worth. So I can lie, cheat, and steal to them. But it's all about me. See, that's over. That doesn't go into the new system. That gets booted right to the lake of fire. But see, God said it was his hope that we would turn from it and that we would return home to him. And he just gave me the scriptures. It all ties together. It's like finally having the roadmap to the plan, not what they wanted to tell us, not what they wanted to lie to us about. Because if we knew the truth, people would be running to receive God's ticket home. And I don't mean physically checking out. I mean, you've turned from your ways. You've turned from that. So you get it? Turn from your ways to the way home. When you capture this revelation, this is the revelation that is going to sweep the nations because they've been taught God's a punishing God. And who created that? Khazarians, Khazarian Mafia. Why? Because then you won't run home to God. But yet, pastors don't hear from the Spirit of God. They don't get the revelation because they're more in tune to their ego and their wallet. Oh, well, Dave, we can't say that. Our $1 billion tithers will walk out the door. They're coming for the entertainment, Dave. Our $400,000 light and sound system. Our 35 people up on the stage playing something that doesn't even line up with our true identity. It talks if. It doesn't talk that it is already done. And again, it just binds everybody up. They don't even know what faith is. They've been lied, and you've heard me say this, they've been lied to that it's something they have to create. You know why you're not healed? You just don't have enough faith. And then just keep moving on and moving on. And you're like, well, did anybody ever think about telling people what faith is? You know what? You know how you get more faith? Faith is the Holy Spirit. Once you receive God incarnated in the flesh, called Jesus, even though it's Yahusha, now you got to try to figure out what the Holy Spirit is doing inside of you, because we were made to be the temple to house the Holy Spirit. We don't even communicate with God. When was the last time you actually physically sat down, had a quiet moment, and just communed with the Father and said, Father, I love you. I give you all the praise and thanksgiving, knowing you have already created everything I could ever need in my life. Nobody. When I say nobody, I mean, 1 in 100,000. They can't even define it. So like, oh, wait, okay, I need to go read the Bible for 4 hours a night, and I need to finish by next Thursday, and then I should have enough faith. And the Holy Spirit is just going, come on. I can't manifest if you don't know what God has already done. I can't manifest if you think you're the builder of faith. No, that's why it says in the Word, we have to die to ourselves. What does it mean? It It means we give up that self-inflicted narcissism, sin nature. And by doing so, that hold disappears and we shrink back down and the Holy Spirit grows within us. The more we humble ourselves, the more we are more concerned about loving people and not about what kind of car we drive, how big our house is, how we're the life of the party, how everybody wants to be like us. The love of God through His Spirit fills us up. This little starburst right here, that's about how much we should take up space right there. And all the rest of this is the expansion of the Holy Spirit within us. This is what I have focused on, dying to self. It took me 8 years to get rid of my self-inflicted narcissism. I was terrible. I still killed and destroyed people and called it success. I got the job offer. I got the promotion. I got the deal closed. It was all to benefit me. The difference is now it's about seeing other people win. It's like in my fishing club when I was in Washington State. I'd be the first one walking up to the team that won the tournament, congratulating them. Man, way to go. Way to go. If you want to share what you did for the day, I'd love to hear it. But I know you might want to keep that private. I'm fine with that. But I just want to tell you how awesome your day was. People just don't know what to do with it. But the Lord says until you can honor somebody else in success, you won't have any. Because that's not how the system works. So I wanted to share that. Okay? Oh, this is so awesome. So, this is what's happening. The divine, supernatural, spiritual aspect of heaven's law has come to earth and removed the false legal system. That's why we're getting the restoration of everything that was stolen. That's why He put the sevenfold blessing in the math, in the last 2 letters of His ineffable name. 7 to the 7th power. Whew. But even pastors will be, oh yeah, God's gonna return 7 times whatever was lost or stolen. Oh my gosh. It's like I want to jump up and hug on him. Say, that's not right. You must be reading one of those translations that's been altered. I mean, there aren't many editions left that still use sevenfold. They all changed it to 7 times. Why? Because it's not a lot. You can't get excited about that. And God loves showing off. But see, God took all this upon Himself. And I'm going to try to bring it close in the next 5 minutes. Why would God do this? Why would He leave heaven, incarnate into the flesh, come and hang around with everybody who's still in their sin nature or not, holding the door open to come home, which simply means you realize that sin nature doesn't serve you and you want everything that He promised for coming back to Him. He absolves you of any legal action against you while you are in your sin nature. As it says, you are washed as clean as snow. Heaven's judicial system can't be used against you. Why? Just the same way that a soldier's told to go out and kill the enemy, and when he comes back, no charges are brought against him. Why? Because that's what his commanding officer told him to do. Now, if he steps out of line and doesn't follow the rules, that's a different story. But God just said, hey, come home. I'll have the way. See how they twisted it? So now Yahusha, he's not connected to God anymore. There's no discussion about Him being the incarnate of God in the flesh. 0. People don't even recognize Yahusha as Hebrew. He's Christian. Hello? That's like saying I'm a potato chip. No, I'm still me. I don't allow monikers to be put on me. I am a son. You could be a daughter. Royal status, by the way, of the one and only Most High. He resides in the highest of the high, living God. There's no other religion that has a living God that's Most High. But they dumbed everybody down. We actually fell from 5th dimension knowledge to be below 3rd dimension and lower. Frequency is just gone. But see, that's all being regenerated back now that God's in control. And it's all His again. And He set them all up from the beginning of time to fail. But see, He did all this to fulfill the promise. He had to. He made the covenant promise with each of us. And you'll start to feel that resonance activating inside of you, knowing what I just said. He just didn't create us to just hang around, go to parties, play Nintendo, Fortnite in the basement. No, He knew it was for a time. That time's over. We're back to humanity now. No stock markets, no derivatives, no options. That's why a lot of the stuff that Brad is having to put out there. It's just controlled narrative to distract. But the people that make it through are going to see what it's really all about. Now, see, Trump already knows it. He's read in on the full plan, but that's why God did it. Now, I will tell you something that was really interesting. I took the number 369 and I took the number 316 and I flipped them around. And do you know that they all end up with a digi sum of 9? So here's God's name. He incarnates in the flesh as Yahusha, Jesus. He was the only perfect sacrifice. And why is that? A little teaching moment here, more revelation. You made a promise to your son or daughter or wife or husband, and you said you were going to do something. Do you just blow it off? Or are you the type of person that will make sure that that promise is kept no matter what? That's Yahusha right here. Being God in the flesh, it was his covenant that he made. It wasn't anybody else's. He had to fulfill the covenant. That's why he was the only acceptable sacrifice. And how is the covenant sealed? With blood. People don't know this. He was the sacrifice and the blood to seal the covenant. He had to come. And the scriptures talked of him coming, the Messiah. Now they thought the Messiah was coming to free them from their bondage. It's not why he came. Because they asked him, have you come to do away with the law? No. And then he simplified everything from the 10 Commandments down to the 613 mitzvot. What do you say? Here's the 2 greatest commandments there are. Love God with all your heart, your mind, your spirit, your soul. That's the one. And then love your neighbor. And you could just stop it right there. Love your neighbor. Love, 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 love. And he said, these are the 2 greatest commandments. Why? Because they were him. Don't fall into the trap of saying, well, it says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's a trap. Because then what do people say? Well, how can I love my neighbor if I don't love myself? They've been taught the cop-out. See, I was taught you love your neighbor at all costs. What does it say? If somebody asks you for your coat, give them your coat. Give them whatever they ask for. That's love. Now, you may not like it, but see the difference? No more cop-outs. Only true understanding of revelation. But see, he already made the promise, people. In him. Whoever believes in him. That's like saying, I would go to basketball practice in high school. Practice was over, and I would sit on the curb waiting for one of my parents to come and pick me up. We lived about 15 miles away. There were many times it was dark, and I was sitting right on the curb. Now, my mom and my dad would pull up. They're flustered. Something happened and everything else. And I go, I'm sorry. I go, hey, you made it. You kept your promise. That's all that was important to me. You kept your promise. You came. How many of us don't keep our promises? Because it doesn't fit in our schedule at a certain time. We blow off meetings. We tell people we're going to call, and we never call. We just told them that to get off the phone. And then it just became habit. I'm running into so many people now, they can't keep their word. Their actions don't match. The talk doesn't match the walk. That's not how you come into God's new economy. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you want to love on people, you love on people. You do it because you want to do it. But it's not a requirement. That's it. Oh, we nailed it. Right at 2 hours. It'll be less when I go through and finish the editing. But I hope you really enjoyed this. It was a message I knew that God wanted you to know about him, know about why he did what he did, and understand that is what's taking place right now. The moment a friend of mine taught me about the 4 doors for a completely different matter, God turns around and opens up the revelation about how it's been used to get rid of the Khazarian mafia, Rothschild's banksters. And he said, Dave, you thought it was for this other thing, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, I needed you to start working with it, but this is why I shared it with you. So you would understand this. You would understand about the protocols with the final ledger, which is the book of life. Everything is reported, recorded, and stored for eternity. So anybody out there that is frustrated because they're not getting access to their money as fast as they want, you got to chill. You got to step back and analyze the situation. God has never forsaken you. And if you have truly let go of your sin nature, that self-inflicted narcissism, and you're just about love, because that's all his economy is about. No stock market, no trying to make one person makes money, another person loses money. Nope. They can talk about it all they want. You can see narratives of all this and IPOs and everything else. That's the old system, people. That's being burnt to the ground, never to come back again. God isn't changing his promise. He's not bending on what it looks like, how he already created it and its intention and what it's doing. We are moving into full restoration, full healing. There will not be a spot on us, preparing the spotless bride, leading the way for the next generation after generation of children. It's all about the children. They're our destiny that will never have to know about evil. Just let that sink in. If you're frustrated because maybe you had to work a few more hours or you had to lean into somebody maybe for a little bit of money temporarily. And whatever you do, don't come against people that are standing in God's faith, knowing it's already done, but you can't see it. That's not their fault, it's your fault. And I've shared with everybody, I knew something was happening in 1976. I end up April 15th, 1994, meeting Dan Rostenkowski, House Ways and Means Committee Chairman, personal friend of the Kennedys, who shares with me this plan that's been on the chalkboard at the White House since Kennedy. And it's going to privatize the Postal Service, remap Social Security, eliminate all income tax, just have a consumption tax of 14% on new goods only, no tax on investments, nothing, freedom. But I didn't have a name then. And he said, it's going to take at least 30 years. I've been waiting over 31 years from then. Were there times when it was hard? You bet. There are times when I had to sacrifice? You bet. But you know what? I never wavered in knowing he's a keeper of every single promise. You can count on that. And we're in the last days because people are coming unglued. And I knew that. He prepared me for it. So when people I was close to just go back guano on me, I just love on them. I forgive them. I ask God to forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They're still his child. And he didn't give us the power to judge. He gives the power to forgive. And we do that with love. That's why when we come out the other side, if we're fortunate enough to having already met the SCAN protocol for purity of intent, you're not going to come against anybody that didn't do what you did, whether that was buy XRP, ZIM Bonds, dinar, dong, whatever it is, had the proper paperwork to say, I'm showing I have a declaration of intent to be a humanitarian, and they didn't have a clue. You're not going to come against them and say you shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, you're just going to be there to listen so they can get it all out. John Maxwell said something that is probably the most powerful thing he ever said, and that is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's how I operate from. People know I care about them. If they don't care about me, there's nothing I can do. I have to set them free. I have to walk away from the trap. But you have to be willing to walk away from people. You can't sit there and be lambasted with somebody else's pain when the entire time you've been there just loving on them. It's a mental condition. And hey, we all have conditions. They poisoned us. They're trying to kill us. They're dropping stuff out of the sky. So nobody's excusable. But we do have to hold ourselves in the highest regard. Because what do we gain from it? Get rid of some frustration? Come on. I mean, I'm under continual attack because I already know what God did. He tells me, he shows me, but the rest of the world doesn't see it. But it doesn't mean I'm not voicing it. I'm not standing on it. I'm not declaring it because I know it's already done. And then it's confirmed over and over and over and over and over again. That's why I say he's a keeper of every promise. Everything he has told me has come true. Everything. And people can't figure out how he does it. It's not me. I'm just the messenger. I'm the pen. He's the ink. So no, there are tens of thousands of people that are in the same situation with spouses, friends who just want to throw them to the curb, poop all over them. But they're coming back if they make it through. I can guarantee you that. And they'll want to treat it like nothing happened. But they're going to have to come. They're going to have to come true. And if that's anybody that's listening right now, you should do it now. You should do it now. Confess openly that you were moving in the wrong direction, and honestly repent. Seek forgiveness. God already has grace. He knew we were doing all this. Think about it. 10 commandments said don't do this. 613 mitzvot said don't do this. And then when he comes in the flesh, he says just love. Just love. Love me with everything in your being, and then love your neighbor. But see, we can't even do that. And it's sad. So I'm going to end it right now. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this deep revelation from the Lord. Your life has been changed forever because of it. I look forward to seeing you on the other side of the Redemption Center. Have a fantastic 4th of July. Be safe. Have fun. Give him all the praise and thanksgiving for having already done everything that needed to be done for your life. And commune with him about what you're doing together in your business because he's paying for it. So I love you. God bless. Bye-bye.